Got a lot of projects in progress on this 3520. I don't think each of them deserves their own video, so we're going to kind of speed things up here in this episode, and I'm going to show you just a little bit of several different projects we're working on. Let's get started. I'm going to start off in the steering column here. I took this apart a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, no, that's not a problem. That rotation there is for the tilt wheel. But I've taken a lot of that apart. Hopefully I can remember how to get it back together. But what we were seeing was looseness in the steering wheel. Now I'm not talking about the looseness we had in the tie rod ends. I've already got that fixed, so we don't have that anymore. What I was seeing was back and forth looseness here, as well as squeaking. I mean, it was just a really loud, annoying squeaking noise. So I started tearing it apart, and eventually I got to the point where the shaft just came right out. Yeah, so here we are. Here's the steering shaft. I'll show you some close-ups of it right there. I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but this right here is worn really bad. Okay, pretty bad wear there. Compare that to the new one. You'll see that there is wear where there's not supposed to be wear. Now it's interesting, I don't know if it's different material than the new one or if it's just different color for no good reason. This has got kind of a brass look to it, but I don't believe it's brass. I believe it's just a coating that's been put on the steel. That's going to fit right in there just like that. And I will have to get snap ring off here, washer on here, and then hopefully I can remember how to get this thing back together. I've got two tricks. Number one, I took some photos as I was taking it apart, and number two, I have the parts diagram from partscatalog.deere.com. I find that very helpful at times for disassembly as well as assembly. The online parts breakdown really does help make this a lot easier. It's much easier than me trying to remember all of it. I bought two new bushings. This is one of the ones I just replaced. It's in here. The other one is on down here in the steering. It was easy to put in. It's interesting, this is an aluminum piece here, but they did put bushings in here for these wearable parts. And that bushing should fit right there. Ah yes, I can tilt my steering wheel down. That's the easier way to get to it. You know, a lot of repair projects like this are not as difficult as what one would think they're going to be, especially when you've got the tools to be able to do it. Now, by tools, I'm really not meaning wrenches, right? By tools here, I'm more meaning the online parts diagram, the ability to see what's going on and make sure that you're going back together in the right order. Yet another reason why I like to get name brand machines, and fairly recent machines, because they're going to have all those parts diagrams and online as well as the parts themselves, right, in stock, or ability to get them fairly quickly. I think from the time I placed my order to getting the shaft and the two bushings was maybe 3 days, maybe 2.5 days. So it was no big deal at all, and it's delivered right to my house with greenpartsstore.com, and use code TTWT. Yep. Next project. I believe the steering shaft was $178. The bushings were maybe $10 each, which is probably kind of expensive, but still not horrible. Now, I could go ahead and put the steering wheel on here, but it might be handy to leave that off for our next project. Okay, folks, take a look right here. Yep, I'm gonna spoil myself. Actually, the 3046R has already spoiled me. We'll see if we can replace that so-called suspension with this. I think I'll put the suspension in and then put the seat back in, rather than trying to put it all in at once like it came out. Okay, doesn't look too bad in there. It's obviously dirty. Good time to clean that up. Good time to clean up some of these sides. Getting a better look at them. That one's a bit scuffed there, but it's a spot that nobody ever sees. I'll clean that up a little bit and we'll figure out the next steps. Well, it could be better. This I couldn't get out, and I couldn't get out a little bit on the other side. But it's good enough for now. That's all I'm going to do on this project because the next step requires me to dive into another project. That's yet another reason why I want to do all this in one episode. This will be the third time I've had this rear wheel off of this tractor. I think twice since I've even moved it. But this time I have 3 reasons to take it off. And it's only this side this time, so I don't have to do both sides. And you'll just have to figure it out as we go. There's 2 bolts holding this emergency brake apparatus down. One here, one here. Much easier to get to if I took the wheel off. Well, for my next project, I want to pick this all up temporarily and then go from there. Couldn't see it from this side. Maybe if I punch the bolts up first. Yeah, that comes out. Now, I didn't do this just to clean it. Working on the cab foam here. Trying to put the air seat in, the air suspension. And this is definitely a 2-person job. At first I put a little slit in the cab foam right here, thinking I could put the power for the air seat right up through there, but then I got it too far forward.
Yeah.
I kind of liked having it hidden, so
Yeah.
not so much of it was out. That, you know, so we
we
can still
another-
make that
yeah.
decision as to whether we want another slot back here. Okay, so we already have the emergency brake there by your knee.
I can.
And when I put it in, of course, it crimps the foam down when we tighten it down, and then that's made this foam stick up out here. So we're not sure whether adhesive is going to be able to hold that down or whether this fender piece is going to be able to, you know, hold it down. It may, but it may not be too bad. We'll see. Okay, so the challenge, though, is to be able to get the holes that go through the bottom of the cab matched to these holes. And to do that, we're using your grandmother's ice pick.
Yep.
Well, we've got this cab foam in. One piece of advice I would share if you're going to try to put cab foam in here is cut it larger than what you think you need it. As we've pressed it down with the seat suspension bracket and with the emergency brake here, it's bunched it inward. So the result is that down here we just don't have enough. So I cut it a little bit too short. I intended to tuck it in there a little bit, and you know, I just didn't end up with enough foam. So it's not going to be perfect. It'll be good enough. I really don't know. The idea was to improve, to deaden the sound a little bit more. You know, make it a little bit quieter, but we'll see whether that works or not. There it goes. The cab foam has made this, I mean, obviously it was meant to go right up against the steel, so it's made it stick out just a little bit. I don't know. This is a removable floor mat, so I don't know what we can do about that. We'll put the cab foam on the back before we put the seat on. I think that'll make it easier. Okay, so here's the final look after we've taken the weights off and everything. We've got it all adhered. Doesn't look perfect. A little bit of wrinkles there. And that corner's not perfect where the wires come out. But I think it looks pretty good. Hopefully it'll be an improvement. Now I'm not ready to put the seat back on yet. I've got a few more things to do in there. So let's step on to the next portion of the project. I want to get this fender replaced because of the chip out down there. And I have another reason why I need to take this fuel tank down. Well, I'll share the second reason for taking the fuel tank down later. It's not a positive one, but before we take the tank down, I had just filled it up with fuel. So I've got to get the fuel out of it. I thought about trying to drain it out at the bottom, but then when I went to the farm show, I found this really cool siphon. Let's put it together now. Okay, this is called the original Safety Syphon. SafetySyphon.net. It is not sponsored. I purchased it myself. Now, I found it on Amazon, so I put it on my Amazon store. If you want to reward us a little bit, that's fine. If not, you can get it at SafetySyphon.net. It's all up to you. It's pretty simple in its design. This is a check valve at this end. And I paid a little extra to get an open and close valve here so that once I get it siphoning, if I get my tank full that I'm siphoning into, I can turn it off. Okay, let's see how it works. When they demonstrated this at the farm show, they shoved it in. What they did was they shook it. Yeah, there we go. So I've got it open. That should be enough. Not sure. It might not be. I've got most of it full here, but I've got some air in between. Be interesting to see if it actually siphons. Now it's going fast now. Once we've got all the air out of it. I'm glad I got this check valve, even though I've made a mess with it. I would have made a worse mess without it. I think I see a new business opportunity, guys. I'm going to go around to all of your tractors, siphon out all of your diesel. I don't have to get it totally empty. I can get it down to a gallon or so. That would be fine. That would still be enough that I could be able to lift the tank. I'm surprised actually at how well this is working. Okay, I got at least 6 gallons out of it. I don't really know how much it holds, but I've got it down to, I think, right in here somewhere. There'll be a few gallons left in it probably, but hopefully enough that I can still lift. I'm gonna take this bracket off here. There's 2 bolts holding it right here and here. And then there's a plate that goes all the way under it. Right? It's held here and held with 2 of these longer bolts. Obviously there'll be fuel lines coming out. This may be that's the drain there, but the fuel line comes out the front on the inside. I'm hoping that there's enough flexibility there that I can at least lay the back end of it down and get it out here where I can work on it. Yeah, you're right. Work on it. You heard it right. Again, the first reason that I needed to take the fuel tank down was to be able to replace this fender. It's just appearance. It doesn't change the function of the tractor any, but it bothers me, so I'm going to replace it. Yeah, I mentioned or alluded to a second reason why I needed to take the fuel tank down, and there it is. Right there. That hole is not supposed to be there. No, that hole was generated by me. I'll show you more. In an earlier episode, I showed you this piece, doing some sandblasting on it, or trying to make it look a little better. But in order to get that removed, it had 2 screws in it. Okay, one here and one up here. And that meant one here, somewhere, one here, and one down here. It's kind of dark in here right now. Remember, this tractor is just totally salt laden, or was. Getting a lot of that cleaned up. But included in that were these screws. I could not get them out. There was no way, so I drilled them out. That all went well. I got it all drilled out, and everything was fine. And then I thought, before I put these back in, I think I'll have to drill it on out and make sure that I can put a screw in there, some sort of a replacement screw, not the original style. So with this one, I drilled. Everything went fine, swimmingly. In fact, yeah, I shouldn't use that term. I looked down and around my feet, I was getting fuel everywhere. That's right, I drilled right through the fuel tank. Might as well make lemonade out of it, right? I mean, there's no use complaining about it now. I made a mistake. So I looked online, looked on YouTube. That's where you find all the answers, right? And I found a patch kit. I found several patch kits that are specifically meant to fix leaks in fuel tanks. I don't think I'll have any trouble with this one. In other words, it's not a difficult place for a leak in any case, because it's on the top side of the tank, so it's not going to have a serious gravity issue on that. Nor is it in a place where it might get torn off, like on the inside of the fender. So I think this is a perfect application for that. We'll get it cleaned up and put that patch on it. Well, so much for patching this today. I didn't have the right thing. I bought the kit, but apparently the kit doesn't include the patch itself. So I'll have to get that ordered, get it put on. So we'll move on to the fender. I'll just put a little piece of tape over this temporarily, and we'll go ahead and get the fender off. This fender shouldn't be too bad. There's some salt damage up in there. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like once we get the fender off. And these bolts around here. One of the advantages of spilling the diesel is that I've got some of these bottom bolts nicely soaked in diesel for several days now. So they should be easier to take off. Okay, I got the fender off, and this is where I was expecting it to be pretty bad salt damaged. It's not nearly as bad there as what I expected, but over here, I really don't know whether it's going to be enough to be structurally a problem after I get it cleaned up. I don't think it will be. I think the fender, all we have to be able to do is hold up this fender consistently with that piece, unless it rusts all the way through the cab. I'll get a wire brush and clean that up a little bit. I've got all of the parts now to be able to repair the fuel tank. This is prep, this is activator accelerator, and this is the adhesive. And this all came as a kit from tbbonding.com. It's not sponsored. None of this stuff is sponsored. I just thought I would show you as I'm using it. I got several pages of instructions, actually a couple of pages front and back, and I had to sort through and figure out which page applied to what I needed. The one warning I would give you is that they did not include the patching surface here in the kit. When I ordered a kit, it came with these 3 items, and I expected a kit to include the patch as well. I ordered a kit of a certain size. They have an economy size, several different sizes. Above that, I ordered the second size of that, but then when I realized I didn't get the patch, I had to call them back. And the patch was an additional $12 and another $11 shipping, so kind of frustrating there. I guess I just should have read their website closer. Overall, I'm quite happy with this approach. The only thing I would change if I were to do it again would be to wear a glove on my right hand, the hand that I was actually touching this with. I got a little of that adhesive on my index finger, and yeah, it's still there. I've treated this rust here. I ground the surface rust all off. Yeah, it's pitted a little bit. I painted it inside, under here, and out. And while it's, you know, it looks rusted pretty bad, it's still structurally fine to hold this fender. So I'm pleased with that. I don't really see any issue. The rust damage around here wasn't nearly as bad as what I thought it was. It was purely on the surface there. And so I'm ready to put the fender back on. Got new kittens just now getting around. Yeah, so we're doing some last minute. Well, Christy's doing last minute cleanup before we put the seat in.
Yep.
Chris and I put in the, well, whatever that is, cowling.
Steering wheel cowling or console cowling.
We'll put the steering wheel on as soon as we get the seat in. I think it'll be easier to get that seat in
Without that in the way.
Chris, do you think we could sand that off a little bit without, I mean, that's pretty rough looking.
Yeah.
I just don't know if we could.
I think so.
We took some sandpaper, Chris did, to this, I think it's where the seat belt had hit it. Now we're trying the heat gun, see if we can kind of make it look.
Blend it in or
I'm not sure if it's doing anything, can't tell.
only let it cool to see.
You know, I think it is. I'm not seeing as much dust.
It's blending in those edges.
Yeah. I believe it is indeed blending in some of the sanded area.
Yeah. Well, look at the color.
So yeah, this is an improvement. It's not, you know, it's not new. Here comes the seat. See, there's 2 sets of holes there, Chris.
I see them.
I want to go in the rear one.
Okay. Stand by.
Rear holes.
Yep, you're on it.
Right there. Looks like I'm gonna have to pump it up. So the seat, I think the cat scratched it up a little bit. It was in really good shape. There's a few places now that the fabric has been scratched, and then right on the top of the armrest. Kind of frustrating. I should have taken better care. Well, I thought I was about ready to go, and then got ready to put my tail light in here, and I realized that that rubber piece around the outside is nowhere to be found. I think I threw it away with my old fender. Maybe I should blame Christy.
No, not me this time, I don't think.
Tomorrow's Christy's birthday, so I'm going to take the blame myself. Meanwhile, she's got my windows all cleaned up. Isn't that nice? I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I think we've got everything put back together. Yeah, that air seat is nice. I can't wait to try it out, Christy. I got her
So
a new...
I can stand outside in the heat and video you in the tractor?
Yeah, I got you a nice air seat for your birthday.
I think you better go to the jewelry store.
Oh. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time on Tractor Time with Tim. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. You like tractors? You better. My hand looks awful big, doesn't it, coming down towards you? Still, you're doing pretty good. You're not being scared of me.